The slap never lands. Victor Langston's hand is midair, fingers spread wide when it happens. A blur, a shift, and suddenly his wrist is locked in someone's grip. Not hard, not showy, just absolute. The lobby of Redwood Valley Medical Center goes silent. Langston blinks. His arm is bent backward at an angle that should hurt, held steady by a woman half his size. She's in scrubs, navy blue, slightly wrinkled. Her ID badge reads Emma Carter, RN, transfer. "Let go of me," he hisses. She does, instantly. Steps back, hands loose at her sides. But the room has already seen it. The CEO of a hospital, frozen mid-swing by a nurse no one's heard of. Someone's phone is recording. Langston straightens his suit jacket, face purple. "You just assaulted me." Emma doesn't blink. "You swung first. I'm calling security." "Go ahead." He doesn't move. Neither does she. The standoff lasts 5 seconds, maybe 6. Long enough for every person in that lobby to realize something is very, very wrong with the power structure they've been living under. If you want to see how far this story can go, how one moment of resistance can shatter an empire, stay with me until the end. Like this video, drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and let me know how far the truth has traveled. 3 days earlier, Emma Carter walked into Redwood Valley Medical Center with a duffel bag and a transfer letter she didn't ask for. The building smelled like disinfectant and something older, fear, maybe, or exhaustion, the kind that settled into the walls and never left. "You're the new float nurse?" Emma nodded. The charge nurse, a rail-thin woman named Linda with graying hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, studied her like she was evaluating a used car with hidden damage. "You ever work trauma?" "Some. Some's not enough here. We get everything. Highway wrecks, gang shootings, overdoses, domestics gone bad. You freeze up, people die." "I won't freeze." Linda snorted, a sound that could have meant anything. "Everyone says that." She handed Emma a locker key, the metal warm from her palm. "Orientation's at 2. Don't be late and don't make waves. Langston hates waves." "Who's Langston?" Linda's face went flat like a door slamming shut. "The CEO. You'll meet him soon enough." She turned and walked away before Emma could ask anything else. Emma didn't push. She'd worked in enough places to know when silence was survival. The locker room was empty except for one other nurse, younger, maybe 25, sitting on a bench with her head in her hands. Her scrubs had coffee stains down the front, and her shoulders were shaking in a way that said she was trying very hard not to cry. "You okay?" Emma asked. The girl looked up, eyes red-rimmed and glassy. "Fine." "Doesn't look fine." "I said I'm fine." She stood abruptly, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and left without another word, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Emma unpacked her bag slowly, 2 extra sets of scrubs, a stethoscope that had seen better days, a small photo she kept face down and didn't look at. She shoved the bag into the locker, spun the combination lock, and headed toward the conference room where orientation was supposed to happen. The room was aggressively beige. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead like trapped insects. 12 nurses sat in folding chairs, most of them staring at their phones, a few whispering to each other. The air felt stale, recycled too many times. A man in a gray suit stood at the front, arms crossed, watching them with the expression of someone who'd already decided they were all disappointments. Victor Langston. He was tall, mid-50s, with the kind of face that looked like it had never apologized for anything. His tie was knotted with mathematical precision. His watch caught the light, Swiss probably, and worth more than most of the people in the room, made in 6 months. "Welcome to Redwood Valley," he said. No smile. No warmth. "I'm Victor Langston, CEO. You're here because we needed bodies. Don't take that as a compliment. Half of you won't last 6 months. The other half will wish they hadn't." Someone shifted uncomfortably in their seat. The sound of fabric against plastic was loud in the silence. "This hospital runs on efficiency," Langston continued. "You follow protocol. You don't deviate. You don't question. You don't get creative. You do your job and you go home. If you have a problem with that, there's the door." No one moved. Good. Any questions? Silence stretched out, thick and uncomfortable. Langston's eyes swept the room slowly, landing on each person for just long enough to make them squirm. When he reached Emma, he paused, half a second longer than the others. She didn't look away. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Then get to work. The group dispersed like startled birds. Emma followed Linda through a maze of hallways that all looked identical. White walls, scuffed floors, the occasional motivational poster that had given up trying to be motivational. They reached the ER, and chaos was already in full swing. A drunk driver was shouting in Bay 3, restrained to a gurney and demanding a lawyer. A kid with a broken arm sat crying in Bay 5 while his mother filled out paperwork. An elderly woman was coding in Bay 7, and the crash team was scrambling. "Grab a cart," someone yelled. Emma moved without thinking, muscle memory taking over. She wheeled the crash cart across the floor, pulled the paddles, started charging them while a resident fumbled with an intubation kit, hands shaking. "Clear!" The woman's chest arced off the bed. The monitor beeped once, twice, then settled into a steady rhythm. The resident exhaled hard, sweat beading on his forehead. "Nice work." Emma didn't respond. She was already stepping back, fading into the background the way she'd learned to do a long time ago. Invisible, unless absolutely necessary. Linda appeared at her elbow, eyes narrowed. "You've done this before." "Some." "Right, some." Linda's tone said she didn't believe a word of it. "Well, keep your head down. Langston doesn't like heroes." Emma glanced toward the admin wing, where Langston's office sat behind frosted glass like a watchtower. "Why not?" "Because heroes ask questions, and questions get you fired. Or worse." Emma didn't ask what worse meant. She had a feeling she'd find out eventually. By the end of the first shift, Emma had seen enough to fill a complaint file the size of a phone book. Nurses working 16-hour shifts without breaks. Equipment that should have been replaced during the previous decade. A cardiac monitor held together with duct tape. A culture of silence so thick it felt like drowning in shallow water. She clocked out at midnight, walked through the parking lot where half the lights were burned out, and sat in her car without turning the engine on. The silence was almost peaceful. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she hadn't called in 8 months. "You good?" She typed back, "Yeah, liar." She didn't respond. Just started the car and drove to a motel on the edge of town. Cheap, anonymous, the kind of place where the clerk didn't look up when you paid in cash and didn't ask why you only had one bag. The room smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Emma dropped her duffel on the bed, sat down, and stared at the wall until her eyes burned. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did anymore. The next morning, she was back at the hospital by 6. Linda handed her a patient chart without preamble. Post-op appendectomy, Bay 12. Should be easy. Just monitor vitals, make sure he's stable. It wasn't easy. The patient, a man in his 40s with thinning hair and a wedding ring, was sweating through his gown. His skin had a grayish tint that set off alarm bells in Emma's head. She checked the monitor, heart rate climbing, blood pressure dropping, temperature spiking. She lifted the gown carefully. The incision was red, swollen, leaking something that definitely wasn't supposed to be leaking. "He's septic," she said. The attending, a young doctor named Patel, who looked like he'd been awake for 36 hours straight, frowned at the chart. "He was fine an hour ago." "He's not fine now. We need to get him back to surgery." "I'll page the surgeon." "Don't page, call now." Patel hesitated, clearly weighing whether following orders from a nurse was worth the potential blowback. Then he looked at the patient's vitals again and picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, the patient was being wheeled back to the OR. Patel came back looking pale and shaken. "You were right. Perforated bowel. Missed it the first time. If we'd waited another hour..." "He'd be dead," Emma finished. Patel nodded slowly. "Thanks. Seriously." Emma shrugged. "Just doing the job." But word spread fast in a hospital. By lunch, half the ER knew the new transfer had caught something the doctors missed. By dinner, the story had reached the administrative wing. Langston knew too. Chiria. He found her in the break room during her dinner break, pouring bad coffee into a styrofoam cup that was already starting to buckle under the heat. "Nurse Carter." She turned, unsurprised. "Mr. Langston." I heard you made a call today, post-op patient in Bay 12. I did. Without consulting the attending first. The attending consulted himself. I just reminded him to move faster. Langston's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching beneath the skin. That's not how we do things here. Then maybe you should change how you do things. The room went silent. Two other nurses by the vending machine suddenly found their phones extremely interesting. One of them actually turned and walked out. Langston stepped closer, invading her space deliberately. You've been here 2 days. You don't get to tell me how to run my hospital. I'm not telling you how to run it. I'm telling you a patient almost died because someone was too scared to act. Scared? Yeah, scared of you. His face went red, a flush creeping up from his collar. For a moment, Emma thought he might actually swing at her right there in the break room with witnesses. Instead, he leaned in, voice dropping to something low and dangerous. You're on probation. One more stunt like this and you're gone. Not just from this hospital. I'll make sure you never work in this state again. Understood. He searched her face for fear, for hesitation, for anything he could use. Found nothing. He walked out, shoulders rigid. The other nurses stared at Emma like she'd just jumped off a bridge with no parachute. You're insane, one of them whispered. Emma took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and burned her tongue. Maybe. He'll destroy you. He's done it before. Yeah? The nurse nodded, glancing toward the door like Langston might reappear. 3 nurses last year, 1 doctor, all gone. He makes up violations, fabricates complaints, gets people blacklisted. You don't cross Victor Langston and survive. Emma set the cup down. Guess I'll be the first. Son. The 3rd day started quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made the hair on the back of Emma's neck stand up. She was assigned to triage, which meant sitting at a desk near the main entrance and deciding who got seen first based on severity. It was boring work, the kind that made your brain go numb and your eyes glaze over after the 15th person with a minor cough. Until the man stumbled through the doors. He was mid-60s, heavy-set, clutching his chest with one hand while the other gripped his wife's shoulder. His face was the color of old concrete. His wife was screaming before they even made it fully inside. Help, please, someone help! Emma was on her feet instantly, chair scraping backward. Sir, can you hear me? The man nodded, gasping, eyes wide with terror. Chest pain? Another nod. How long? 10 minutes, the wife sobbed, words tumbling over each other. Maybe more. I don't know. He said it was indigestion, but it's not. I know it's not. Emma grabbed a wheelchair from beside the desk, got the man seated with practiced efficiency, and started wheeling him toward the ER entrance. But the doors were locked. Budget cuts had reduced after-hours access points to save on security costs. The ER was on the far side of the building, accessible only through a winding corridor. Open the door, Emma yelled toward the security station. A guard appeared, young, nervous, shaking his head. Protocol says all non-emergency entries go through triage processing first. This is an emergency. I need a doctor's authorization to override. He's having a heart attack. Then get a doctor to authorize. The man slumped forward in the wheelchair, eyes rolling back. His wife's scream could have shattered glass. Emma didn't wait, didn't think. She tilted the wheelchair back on its rear wheels, kicked open the nearest side door, an exit, not an entrance, clearly marked with alarms, and hauled the man through. Sirens blared immediately. People shouted. She didn't care. She got him to the ER, yelled for a crash cart before she'd even cleared the doorway, and started chest compressions while a resident scrambled to set up the defibrillator, nearly dropping the paddles twice. Charging! Clear! The man's body jerked like a puppet with cut strings. The monitor flatlined for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, then beeped. We got him, the resident breathed, hands still shaking. Emma stepped back, sweat dripping down her temples, heart hammering. The man's wife collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief, clutching her purse like it was the only solid thing in the world. And then Langston walked in. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there at the edge of the trauma bay, watching the team stabilize the patient, watching them get IV lines in and oxygen flowing. His face was completely unreadable. Then he turned to Emma. My office. Now. She followed him through the halls, past nurses who wouldn't meet her eyes, past doctors who suddenly had urgent paperwork to review. His office was large, spotless, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the parking lot and a desk that probably cost more than Emma made in a year. Everything was arranged with military precision. He closed the door with a soft click. You broke protocol. I saved a life. You triggered a security alarm. You bypassed triage. You entered through an emergency exit. You violated hospital policy in at least 4 different ways. Your policy almost killed him. Langston's fist slammed onto the desk hard enough to make a pen holder jump. I don't care. You don't get to decide which rules matter. Emma stood perfectly still, hands at her sides. If the rules say let someone die, then yeah, I do. He stared at her, chest heaving, face flushed. Then he smiled, cold, calculated, the expression of a man who knew exactly how much power he had. You're done. Pack your things. You're fired. Effective immediately. Fine. Fine? Emma shrugged. You want me gone? I'm gone. But you're still going to have a broken system, and people are still going to die because you care more about control than care. Firing me doesn't fix that. Langston's smile vanished like someone had flipped a switch. Get out of my office! She turned toward the door, hand on the handle. And then the alarms went off again. Not the security alarms this time. The hospital-wide emergency system, the one that only activated for the worst possible scenarios. A voice crackled over the intercom, tense and urgent. Code Silver, main lobby. Repeat. Code Silver, main lobby. Active threat. Langston's face went white. Emma was already moving, pulling the door open and running toward the lobby before he could say a word. The lobby had transformed into a nightmare. A man in a torn jacket stood in the center of the open space, waving a hunting knife with a 6-inch blade, shouting at no one and everyone. His voice echoed off the high ceilings. Security was trying to form a perimeter, but they looked terrified, hands hovering near their radios but not their weapons. Stay back, the man screamed, spittle flying. I just need help. I just need someone to listen. Emma slipped past the security line, hands visible and open at her sides, moving slowly and deliberately. Sir? He spun toward her, knife shaking in his grip. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd thought. Maybe 30, with hollow cheeks and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. Don't come closer. I'm not. I'm staying right here. She kept her voice level, calm. What's your name? Doesn't matter. It does to me. He blinked, confusion breaking through the desperation for just a moment. Why? Because you're a person, not a problem. What's your name? Marcus. Okay, Marcus. I'm Emma. I'm a nurse here. You said you need help. I believe you. His laugh was bitter, broken. No one believes me. They all just... His voice cracked. They just keep kicking me out every time. I come in, I tell them something's wrong, and they say I'm faking. But I'm not. I swear I'm not. Emma glanced at his hands, trembling, but not from adrenaline. The tremor was deeper, systemic. Withdrawal, maybe. Or untreated pain that had been going on so long his nervous system was misfiring. What hurts? She asked. My stomach. All the time. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't... Tears ran down his face, cutting tracks through dirt and exhaustion. I just want it to stop. That's all. I just want it to stop. Okay? We can help with that, but I need you to put the knife down first. They'll just throw me out again. They always do. Not this time. How do you know? Emma met his eyes directly. Because I'm not letting them. For a long moment, he just stared at her, searching for the lie, the trick, the catch. Then slowly, like he was moving through water, he lowered the knife. Security moved in fast, too fast, slamming him to the ground and cuffing his hands behind his back. Marcus cried out, and Emma stepped forward without thinking. Easy. He's not resisting. He threatened people with a weapon, one of the guards said, breathing hard. He's in pain. Now he goes to the ER. Full workup. No exceptions. The guard looked past her, clearly seeking authorization from someone with more authority. Langston was standing at the edge of the lobby, surrounded by administrative staff who'd come running when the alarm went off. His expression was unreadable, eyes fixed on Emma. The entire lobby was watching, waiting. Langston nodded once. The guards hauled Marcus to his feet and started walking him toward the ER. Emma followed, ignoring the whispers, the stares, the way Langston's gaze tracked her every move like a predator watching prey. They put Marcus in a bay at the far end of the ER, still cuffed, but with a guard stationed outside instead of hovering over him. Emma pulled the curtain, blocking out the stairs from the hallway. "Can you uncuff him?" she asked the guard. "Against protocol. He's not going anywhere, and I can't examine him properly like this." The guard hesitated, then radioed for permission. A crackling voice came back, approved. The cuffs came off. Marcus rubbed his wrists, red marks already forming. Emma pulled on gloves and started a physical exam, gentle and methodical. "When did the pain start?" 6 months ago, maybe more." "You see a doctor?" "I tried. Free clinic kept saying it was stress, gave me antacids." Emma palpated his abdomen. He winced when she pressed on the right lower quadrant. Classic sign. "Anyone run blood work?" He shook his head. Said they didn't have the budget. She stepped out of the bay and found Patel at the nurse's station charting. "I need a CBC, CMP, lipase, and an ultrasound on the patient in bay 14. Patel looked up, frowning. "That's the guy with the knife. That's the guy in pain who didn't get treatment because no one would listen." "Emma, please." Something in her voice made him stop. He nodded and started putting in the orders. 2 hours later, the results came back. Gallstones, large ones, causing chronic inflammation and pain, completely treatable, completely preventable if someone had just run the damn test 6 months ago. Patel stared at the screen. "This should have been caught." "Yeah, it should have. He could have gone septic, could have died. Still could if we don't get him to surgery." Patel picked up the phone and called the surgical team. Emma went back to Marcus's bay. "We found it," she said. "Gallstones. You're going to need surgery, but after that, the pain stops." Marcus stared at her like she'd just told him he'd won the lottery. "You're serious?" "Completely." "But I don't have insurance. I can't pay." "We'll figure it out. Right now, you need surgery." He started crying again, but this time it was different. Relief instead of desperation. Emma stepped out and nearly ran into Langston. He was standing just outside the bay, arms crossed, face impossible to read. "That was quite a performance," he said. "It wasn't a performance. It was patient care. You countermanded security. You made diagnostic decisions without physician oversight. You committed this hospital to an expensive surgery for an uninsured patient who threatened staff with a weapon. I committed this hospital to doing its job." Langston's eyes narrowed. "You're fired." "I said that already." "Why are you still here?" "Because that patient needed help. You can fire me after he's stable." "I can fire you right now." "You could, but you won't." "Why not?" Emma gestured toward the lobby, still visible through the ER doors. "Because every person out there just watched you authorize treatment for someone in crisis. If you fire me now, it looks like retaliation for doing the right thing, and you care way too much about image to let that happen." Langston's jaw worked. For a moment, she thought he might explode, might finally lose the careful control he wore like armor. Instead, he leaned in close, voice dropping to something almost conversational. "You think you're smart. You think you've got me figured out, but you have no idea who you're dealing with." Emma didn't blink. "Yeah, I do." He straightened, smoothed his tie. "Enjoy your last shift, Nurse Carter. After tonight, you'll never work in a hospital again." He walked away, shoes clicking on the linoleum. Emma watched him go, heart pounding but hand steady. Linda appeared at her elbow, face pale. "You really did it. You actually went up against him." "Someone had to." "No one has to. That's the whole point. You keep your head down, you survive. You fight, you disappear." "Maybe. Or maybe things only stay broken because everyone's too scared to fix them." Linda shook her head, something like pity in her eyes. "You're brave. I'll give you that. Brave and stupid." "Probably." Marcus went to surgery an hour later. The procedure took 90 minutes. When he came out, groggy but stable, Emma was still there, waiting. "You stayed," he mumbled. "Said I would." "Thank you," Seriously, I thought no one cared. Someone always cares, you just have to find them. She stayed until he was transferred to a recovery room, until the night shift took over, until there was nothing left to do. Then she walked to the locker room, grabbed her duffel bag, and headed for the exit. The parking lot was dark, half the lights still burned out. Her car was one of only a dozen left. She unlocked it, tossed the bag in the back seat, and sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. Her phone buzzed, a text from the same number as before. How'd it go? She typed back. Got fired. Figured. You okay? Emma stared at the phone for a long time before answering. Yeah, I think I am. She started the car and drove toward the motel, windows down, night air cold against her face. Tomorrow she'd figure out what came next. Tonight, she'd sleep knowing she'd done the right thing, consequences be damned. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because the next morning, when Emma woke up to sunlight streaming through thin motel curtains, her phone was flooded with missed calls. All from the hospital, all marked urgent. She called back expecting HR, expecting lawyers, expecting the final blow. Instead, she got Linda. You need to come back, now. I'm fired, remember? Langston's gone. He didn't show up this morning. His office is locked, his phone's off, and the board is losing their minds. Emma sat up, suddenly wide awake. What happened? No one knows, but there's more. That patient from yesterday, Marcus, his case got flagged. Turns out he's not the first person who came in with treatable conditions and got turned away. There's a whole file, years worth. Someone buried it? Someone did? And now it's all coming out. Linda's voice dropped. Emma, people are talking. They're saying you were right. They're saying someone needs to answer for what's been happening here. Emma stood, already reaching for her clothes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Make it 10, because whatever you started yesterday, it's not over. It's just beginning. Emma hung up, heart racing, mind already spinning through possibilities. She grabbed her bag, checked out of the motel in under 3 minutes, and drove toward Redwood Valley Medical Center with the rising sun turning the sky the color of fire. Somewhere in the building, the truth was starting to crack through the surface, and Emma Carter was about to be standing at the center of the earthquake. The hospital looked different in morning light, sharper, more exposed. Emma parked in the same spot she'd left 12 hours ago and walked through the main entrance expecting security to stop her. No one did. The lobby was packed, nurses clustered in groups, administrators rushing past with files clutched to their chests, someone from IT hauling a desktop computer toward the elevators. Linda met her at the reception desk, eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. His office is sealed, board's orders. Nobody goes in, nobody touches anything. Where is he? No idea. He was supposed to be here at 6 for an emergency budget meeting. Never showed. Hasn't answered his phone, his assistant can't reach him, and his wife called an hour ago asking if we'd seen him. Emma glanced toward the administrative wing. Yellow caution tape stretched across Langston's office door. A security guard stood outside, looking uncomfortable. What about the files Linda mentioned? Come on. They walked through the ER, past bays where the morning shift was already drowning in patients, and into a small conference room that smelled like burnt coffee and panic. Spread across the table were dozens of manila folders, patient charts, incident reports. Patel was there, along with 3 other doctors Emma didn't recognize, and 2 nurses who looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Show her, Linda said. Patel slid a folder across the table. Emma opened it. The name on the chart was Rachel Voss, 28 years old, admitted 6 months ago with abdominal pain. Discharged after 2 hours with a diagnosis of anxiety. She'd come back 3 days later, same complaint. Discharged again. The 3rd time, she'd coded in the waiting room. By the time they got her stabilized, it was too late. Ruptured ectopic pregnancy. Massive internal bleeding. She died in surgery. There are 47 cases like this, Patel said quietly. Patients who came in with legitimate complaints, got turned away or undertreated, and either died or suffered permanent damage. Every single one was flagged by a nurse or a resident. Every single flag was buried. Buried how? Incident reports that never made it to the board. Follow-up investigations that got closed without explanation. Complaints that disappeared from the system. He pulled out another file. This one's from 2 years ago. Guy came in having a stroke. Triage nurse recognized it immediately, called for a neuroconsult. Langston overrode it, said they didn't have the budget for unnecessary specialists. Sent the guy home with aspirin. He had a massive stroke 12 hours later. Now he can't walk or talk. Emma felt something cold settle in her stomach. Who found these? I did, said one of the nurses, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Her name tag read Diane Murphy, RN. I've been here 19 years. I started keeping copies 3 years ago when I realized reports I filed were vanishing. Kept them in my car. Figured someday someone might care. Why didn't you go to the board? Diane's laugh was bitter. Langston controls the board. Half of them owe their positions to him. The other half are too scared to cross him. I tried once, early on. Got called into his office, told if I ever made accusations like that again, he'd make sure I lost my license. So I documented everything and waited. For what? For someone like you. Someone too stupid or too brave to back down. Emma looked at the folders again, at the names of people who'd trusted the system and died because of it. We need to take this to the state medical board, the licensing authority, someone outside the hospital. Already done, Patel said. I called them an hour ago. They're sending investigators today. Langston will hear about it. He already has. That's probably why he ran. The door opened. A man in a suit walked in, flanked by 2 others. His badge read State Medical Board, Senior Investigator. I'm John Kellerman. We're going to need statements from everyone in this room, and we're going to need access to every file, every email, every piece of documentation related to Victor Langston's administration. Emma stepped back, letting the others take the lead. This was their fight now. She'd just been the spark. But Kellerman's eyes landed on her. You're Emma Carter? Yeah. We'll need to talk to you too. You were the last person to have a recorded confrontation with Langston before he disappeared. Disappeared. The word hung in the air like smoke. I didn't make him disappear, Emma said. Didn't say you did. But you rattled him, and now he's gone, and we're peeling back what looks like years of systematic negligence and possible criminal misconduct. So yeah, we need your statement. Emma nodded. Fine, but I want immunity. Kellerman frowned. For what? For breaking hospital protocol, bypassing security. Any policy violations Langston documented before he vanished. I'm not getting buried because I did the right thing. Kellerman studied her, then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. The next 4 hours were a blur. Emma gave her statement in excruciating detail. Every interaction with Langston, every protocol she'd broken, every patient she'd fought for. Kellerman recorded it all, asked follow-up questions that made her relive moments she'd rather forget, and finally let her go with a warning not to leave town. She walked out of the conference room exhausted, head pounding. Linda caught her in the hallway. You okay? Define okay. Fair point. Linda hesitated. There's something else. Marcus? The guy from last night? He wants to talk to you. Emma followed her to the recovery wing. Marcus was sitting up in bed, looking better than he had any right to after emergency surgery. The color had returned to his face. His eyes were clear. Hey, Emma said. Hey. He gestured to the chair beside the bed. Sit, please. She sat. I don't know how to thank you, Marcus said. Everyone else looked at me like I was trash. You looked at me like I was a person. You are a person. Yeah, but not everyone sees it that way. He picked at the blanket. The surgeon told me what was wrong, said if I'd waited another week I probably would have died. So thank you for not giving up on me. Emma didn't know what to say to that. Just doing my job. No, you weren't. Your job was to follow orders. You broke them. For me. His voice cracked. That matters. Emma swallowed hard. Get some rest. You've got a long recovery ahead. She stood, but Marcus grabbed her hand. Whatever happens next, with that CEO guy with all this, I'm here. If you need someone to speak up, to testify, whatever, I'm here. Emma squeezed his hand once, then left before the emotion she'd been holding back could spill over. The hospital felt like it was holding its breath. Everywhere Emma went, people were whispering. Investigators were pulling records. interviewing staff, photographing Langston's office. The board had called an emergency meeting. Rumors were spreading faster than wildfire. Emma found herself back in the ER because it was the only place that still made sense. Patients didn't care about administrative chaos. They just wanted help. She picked up a chart. Sprained ankle, Bay 6. Simple, easy. Except the patient, a teenage girl, was sitting on the exam table crying while her mother paced and yelled into a phone. "I don't care what your policy is. We've been waiting 3 hours for an X-ray." Emma stepped in. "I can help with that." The mother spun around. "Are you a doctor?" "Nurse, but I can get the X-ray ordered and expedite it." "Everyone keeps saying that. Nobody does anything." Emma pulled out her phone, called radiology directly instead of going through the system. "This is Emma Carter, ER. I need an X-ray for a pediatric ankle injury, Bay 6. How fast can you get someone down here?" A pause. Then, 10 minutes. "Thank you." She hung up. 10 minutes. The mother stared at her. "That's it?" "That's it." Why didn't anyone else do that? Because they're scared, Emma thought. Because the system taught them not to make waves. Sometimes you just need to ask the right way. The X-ray tech arrived in 8 minutes. The ankle was fractured but stable. Emma got the girl a walking boot and discharge instructions, and the mother actually hugged her on the way out. "Thank you. Seriously. You're the only person who treated us like we mattered." Emma watched them leave, feeling something shift in her chest. This was why she'd become a nurse. Not the politics, not the power struggles, just helping people who needed it. But the moment of peace didn't last. A commotion erupted near the entrance. Raised voices, security rushing toward the doors. Emma followed the sound and found herself staring at a nightmare. Victor Langston was back. He looked like he'd been through hell. His suit was wrinkled, his tie missing, his face unshaven, but his eyes were still sharp, still calculating. "I want my office unlocked," he said to the security guard. "Now." "Sir, I can't do that. The board—" "I don't care about the board. This is my hospital." "Not anymore," a voice said. Everyone turned. A woman in her 60s stood near the elevators, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. Her hair was steel gray, pulled back in a bun. Her expression was carved from ice. "Margaret Whitfield," Linda whispered to Emma. "Board chair. She's been trying to push Langston out for years." Margaret walked forward slowly, deliberately. "Victor, you're no longer CEO of this hospital. The board voted unanimously this morning to terminate your employment effective immediately. You need to leave." Langston laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You can't fire me. I built this place. I saved it from bankruptcy. Without me, this hospital would have shut down 5 years ago. And in the process, you buried 47 patient safety incidents, falsified reports, and created a culture of fear that led to preventable deaths." Margaret's voice was calm, clinical. "The state medical board is investigating. The district attorney's office has been notified. You're done." Langston's face went purple. "You have no proof." "We have boxes of proof, files, emails, testimony from 24 staff members. It's over, Victor." For a moment, Emma thought he might actually attack Margaret. His hands clenched into fists, his breathing quick and shallow. Then his eyes landed on Emma. "This is your fault," he said quietly. "You started this." "No," Emma said. "You started it. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening." Langston took a step toward her. Security moved to intercept, but Emma held up a hand. "Let him come." Langston stopped 3 feet away. "You think you're a hero? You think you saved people? You destroyed this hospital? You destroyed me. I didn't destroy anything. I just asked questions you didn't want answered. You broke every rule because your rules killed people." Langston's hand twitched, the same motion from the day before, the beginning of a slap. Emma saw it coming a mile away. She didn't move, didn't flinch. His hand stopped mid-swing. The lobby was silent. "Go ahead," Emma said quietly. "Hit me. Right here, in front of everyone. Prove exactly what kind of person you are." Langston's hand trembled in the air. Then slowly he lowered it. "You'll regret this," he whispered. "Maybe. But at least I'll be able to sleep at night." Security escorted him out. Emma watched him go, feeling nothing. Not victory, not satisfaction, just tired. Margaret approached. That took courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Margaret extended her hand. I'm Margaret Whitfield. I owe you an apology. Emma shook her hand, confused. For what? For not acting sooner. I knew something was wrong here. I suspected Victor was hiding things, but I didn't push hard enough, didn't dig deep enough. People died because I was too cautious. Her grip tightened. That won't happen again. What happens now? Now we rebuild. We implement new safety protocols, new oversight systems. We make sure every person who walks through those doors gets the care they deserve. Margaret paused. And I'd like you to help. I'm just a nurse. You're the nurse who stood up when everyone else stayed silent. That matters more than any degree or title. Margaret pulled out a business card. Think about it. We're going to need people like you in leadership positions. Emma took the card, too stunned to respond. Margaret walked away, leaving Emma standing in the lobby with the card in her hand and 100 questions in her head. The rest of the day passed in a haze. More interviews, more investigators, more revelations. By evening, the news had broken. Local stations were camped outside, reporters shouting questions at anyone who walked by. The story was spreading. Corruption at Redwood Valley Medical Center. Patients endangered. CEO missing, now fired. Emma avoided the cameras, slipped out a side entrance, and drove back to the motel. Her room felt smaller than before, the walls pressing in. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Hello? Heavy breathing on the other end. Then, you think you won. Emma's blood went cold. Langston? You destroyed my life, my career, everything I built. You did that yourself. No, you did, and you're going to pay for it. Is that a threat? Silence. Then the line went dead. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in her hand, heart hammering. She should call the police, should report it. But something told her Langston was done making threats in the open. Whatever came next would be quieter, more dangerous. She didn't sleep that night, just sat by the window, watching the parking lot, waiting for headlights that never came. Morning arrived gray and cold. Emma showered, changed into clean scrubs, and drove back to the hospital. The news vans were still there, but fewer. The story was already getting old. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. People made eye contact now, said good morning, smiled even. Linda found her near the nurse's station. You look like hell. Didn't sleep. Yeah, well, you might want to brace yourself. There's a staff meeting in 10 minutes. Mandatory. Everyone's talking about it. The auditorium was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls. Emma slipped in the back, trying to stay invisible. Margaret stood at the podium, flanked by board members and investigators. She waited for the room to quiet, then spoke. I won't sugarcoat this. What happened here was a systemic failure at every level. Patients were harmed. Lives were lost. And many of you witnessed it but felt powerless to stop it. She paused. That ends today. We're implementing immediate changes. Independent oversight committees, anonymous reporting systems, mandatory safety audits. But more than that, we're changing the culture. No one should ever feel afraid to speak up when they see something wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I also want to address the elephant in the room. Victor Langston is gone. He will not be returning. Criminal charges are likely. And to everyone who suffered under his leadership, I'm sorry. The board failed you. I failed you. That won't happen again. Someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the whole room erupted in applause. Margaret raised a hand. Don't thank me. Thank the people who had the courage to come forward. Thank the nurses and doctors who documented everything when they thought no one was listening. And thank Emma Carter, who refused to accept that this was just how things were. Every head in the room turned toward the back, toward Emma. She wanted to disappear, wanted to melt into the floor, but people were standing now, still clapping, some of them crying. Diane was there, smiling through tears. Patel gave her a nod. Even Linda looked grudgingly impressed. Emma forced herself to stay upright, to not run, to accept the recognition she'd never wanted. The meeting ended. People swarmed her, shaking her hand, thanking her, asking questions. She answered mechanically, smiled when expected, and escaped as soon as possible. She made it to the parking lot before someone called her name. "Carter, wait." She turned. A man in his 40s, wearing a police detective's badge, walked toward her. "I'm Detective Ryan Torres. I need to ask you a few questions about the phone call you received last night." Emma froze. "How do you know about that?" "Your phone company flagged it. Threatening call from a burner phone purchased yesterday in cash. We're trying to trace it, but so far nothing. It was Langston." "You're sure?" "Pretty sure." Torres pulled out a notepad. "What exactly did he say?" Emma recounted the conversation word for word. Torres wrote it down, frowning. "We've been looking for him since yesterday. He's not at his house, not at any of his known properties. Bank accounts haven't been touched. It's like he vanished. Maybe he left the state. Maybe. Or maybe he's planning something." Torres met her eyes. "Watch your back. Men like Langston don't take humiliation well. And you didn't just humiliate him, you destroyed him." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "You think he'd actually try something?" "I think he's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things." Torres handed her a card. "You see him, you call me immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself." Emma took the card, added it to the growing collection in her pocket. Torres left. Emma got in her car and just sat there, hands on the wheel, trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You should have stayed quiet." Then another. "Now everyone you care about is going to suffer." Emma's hands shook. She called Torres immediately, read him the texts. He told her to forward them, to stay in public places, to consider getting a hotel room somewhere else. She drove. Not to the motel, not to the hospital. Just drove through Redwood Valley, watching the streets blur past, trying to think. Langston was unraveling. And when men like him unraveled, they took people down with them. She pulled into a gas station, filled the tank, bought bad coffee, and a granola bar she didn't eat. Her phone rang again. This time it was Linda. "Emma, where are you?" "Gas station on 5th. Why?" "Get back here. Now." "What happened?" "Just get here." Emma broke every speed limit on the way back. The hospital parking lot was swarming with police cars, ambulances, fire trucks. She abandoned her car and ran inside. The ER was chaos, patients everywhere, staff running, someone screaming. Emma grabbed the first nurse she saw. "What happened?" "Chemical spill in the West Wing. Maintenance was moving old cleaning supplies. Something leaked. Fumes everywhere. We've got 20 people with respiratory distress. Maybe more." Emma didn't think. She grabbed a mask, gloves, and headed toward the affected area. Security tried to stop her. "That section sealed off." "Then unseal it. People need help." She pushed past into a hallway thick with acrid smoke. Her eyes watered immediately. Through the haze, she could see figures slumped against walls, coughing, gasping. Emma started triaging on the spot, pulling people toward fresh air, assessing breathing, calling for oxygen. Other nurses appeared, following her lead. Together they cleared the hallway in under 10 minutes. The last person she pulled out was a janitor, unconscious, barely breathing. Emma started rescue breathing while someone else ran for a bag valve mask. By the time they got him to the ER, his pulse was thready but present. Emma stumbled into the hallway, ripped off her mask, and vomited into a trash can. Her lungs burned. Her eyes felt like they were full of sand. Linda appeared with a bottle of water. "You're insane." Emma rinsed her mouth, spat. "You've mentioned that." The building inspector just confirmed it. The chemical spill wasn't an accident. Someone deliberately punctured the containers. Emma's blood went cold. "Langston." "We don't know that." "Yes, we do." Torres showed up 20 minutes later, face grim. "We found his car. Abandoned 2 miles from here, driver's side door open, keys still in the ignition." "He's here," Emma said. "He's in the hospital somewhere." Torres started barking orders into his radio. Officers flooded the building, searching floor by floor. Emma went back to the ER, tried to help with the influx of patients from the chemical spill. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every door opening made her flinch. Hours passed. They didn't find him. By midnight, the hospital was under lockdown. No one in, no one out, without police clearance. Emma sat in the break room, drinking coffee that had gone cold, trying to keep her eyes open. Diane sat down beside her. "You should go home." "Where's home?" "Fair point." Diane was quiet for a moment. "He really got to you, didn't he?" "Who?" "Langston. You're scared." Emma didn't deny it. "He's got nothing left to lose. That makes him dangerous." "So what do you do?" "I don't know." Diane stood, patted her shoulder. "Well, whatever you decide, you're not alone anymore. Remember that." She left. Emma sat in the silence, thinking about all the people who'd stood up today, who'd spoken truth when it mattered. Her phone buzzed, another text from the unknown number. "Look outside." Emma's heart stopped. She stood slowly, walked to the window, and looked down at the parking lot. A figure stood under one of the working lights. Tall, wearing a suit. Langston. He was staring directly up at her window. Emma grabbed her phone, dialed Torres. "He's outside, southwest parking lot." "Stay where you are. We're coming." But even as she said it, Langston was moving, walking calmly toward the building's service entrance, the one only staff knew about. He was coming inside. And Emma realized with absolute certainty that he was coming for her. Emma's finger was already dialing Torres when she saw Langston disappear through the service entrance. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "He's inside, service entrance, west side, moving toward..." The lights went out, not just in the break room, everywhere. The entire hospital plunged into darkness so complete Emma couldn't see her own hand. Emergency generators kicked in after 3 seconds that felt like 3 minutes, bathing everything in dim red emergency lighting that turned the hallways into something from a nightmare. Screams erupted from patient rooms. Monitors started beeping, dozens of them, all at once, as power fluctuations hit critical equipment. Someone was shouting about the ventilators in ICU. Emma moved on instinct, muscle memory from training she'd tried to forget. She felt along the wall toward the ER, where the backup power should be routing first. Her phone was dead, screen black, completely drained despite having 70% battery 5 minutes ago. Electromagnetic pulse, some distant part of her brain supplied. Small scale, localized, military grade. Which meant Langston had help, or resources she hadn't anticipated. The ER was chaos illuminated in red. Nurses were manually bagging patients whose ventilators had failed. Doctors were barking orders, trying to prioritize who needed attention first. The backup generators were running, but they weren't designed to power the entire hospital, just critical systems. Linda spotted Emma and grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. "ICU's got 20 patients on life support. We need to get portable oxygen up there now." "Where's security?" "Responding to a dozen different emergencies. Someone pulled fire alarms on 3 floors. The pharmacy's been broken into. And the elevators are down." Linda's voice cracked. "It's coordinated." Emma looked toward the stairwell. 4 flights to ICU. She started moving. "Wait!" Linda called after her, but Emma was already gone. The stairwell was darker than the hallways, emergency lighting sparse. Emma took the stairs 2 at a time, lungs still burning from the chemical exposure earlier. Her legs screamed by the 2nd floor. She ignored them. 3rd floor, 4th floor. She burst through the ICU doors and found organized chaos. Nurses and respiratory therapists working in teams, manually ventilating patients, checking oxygen saturation levels by pen light. "How many?" Emma asked. The charge nurse, a woman named Patricia, looked up from a patient. 18 critical. We've got enough portable oxygen for maybe 30 minutes if we ration. After that..." She didn't finish, didn't need to. Emma's mind raced. "The surgical wing has backup oxygen, separate system, 2 floors down and across the building. We'd never make it back in time. Then we bring patients to the oxygen instead of oxygen to the patients." Patricia stared at her. "You want to move ICU patients during a power failure with no elevators? You got a better idea?" Patricia looked at her 18 dying patients, then back at Emma. "Start with the most stable ones. Work our way down." They organized quickly, teams of 3 per patient, 1 pushing the bed, 1 managing the airway, 1 carrying the portable monitor. Emma took the first team herself, a 60-year-old woman recovering from cardiac surgery. The journey to the surgical wing should have taken 5 minutes. In the dark, with a patient who couldn't breathe on her own, it took 15. Emma's arms shook from holding the bag valve mask, squeezing it every 5 seconds to push air into the woman's lungs. The hallways felt endless. They made it, got the patient hooked up to the surgical wing's oxygen supply. Her saturation levels climbed from 82 to 95. Emma didn't wait to celebrate, just turned and ran back for the next patient. 4 trips. 5. 6. Her legs were jelly, her vision blurred at the edges. But she kept moving because stopping meant people died. On the 7th trip, she heard it, footsteps behind her in the dark. Too heavy to be a nurse, too deliberate to be someone lost. Emma kept walking, didn't turn around. The surgical wing was 50 feet ahead. 40. 30. "I know you can hear me," Langston's voice echoed down the hallway. Emma's hands tightened on the bed rails. The patient, a man in his 40s, post-op from a liver transplant, was unconscious, fragile. Moving faster might kill him. Stopping definitely would. 20 feet. "You destroyed everything I built," Langston said, closer now. 20 years. Gone. Because you couldn't mind your own business. 10 feet. "Say something, Emma, or are you too scared?" Emma reached the surgical wing doors and backed through them, pulling the patient bed with her. Patricia was there, already reaching for the oxygen lines. "Lock it," Emma said. "What?" "Lock the doors. Now." Patricia hit the magnetic lock. The doors sealed with a heavy click. Through the small window, Emma saw Langston step into view. His suit was filthy, face gaunt, but his eyes were clear, focused, and he was holding something in his right hand, a scalpel. "You think a locked door stops me?" His voice was muffled through the glass. "I have master keys to this entire building." He held up a key ring, surgical steel glinting in the red emergency lighting. Patricia backed away from the door. "He's insane." Emma pulled out her dead phone, useless as a brick. No way to call for help. No way to know if Torres even got her message before the EMP hit. She looked around the surgical wing. 6 patient beds, all occupied now with ICU transfers. 2 nurses, 1 respiratory therapist, and Patricia. No security, no weapons except medical instruments. And Langston was unlocking the door. Emma grabbed a crash cart, wheeled it against the door. "Help me." Patricia and the other nurses shoved equipment against the entrance. Carts, monitoring stations, anything heavy. The door pushed inward an inch before the barricade held. "That won't last," Patricia whispered. She was right. Langston threw his weight against the door. The crash cart scraped backward. Another hit. The barricade shifted. Emma's mind raced through options. The surgical wing had 2 exits, the main doors they'd just blocked, and an emergency exit that led to the exterior fire escape, 4 floors up, in the dark, with 6 patients who couldn't be moved. Not an option. Langston hit the door again. The crash cart tipped over, contents spilling across the floor. Defibrillator paddles, medication vials, intubation supplies. An idea sparked. "Get the patients into the operating rooms," Emma said. "Close the doors, lock them from inside. We can't treat them in there without—" "I don't care. Do it." Patricia hesitated, then started organizing. Teams moved patients into the 3 operating rooms off the main wing. Emma stayed behind, watching Langston through the window. He'd stopped hitting the door, was just standing there, staring at her. "You can't save everyone, Emma," he said. "That's what I tried to teach this hospital. Resources are limited, choices have to be made, but you couldn't accept that." "You didn't make choices, you made excuses. I made this hospital profitable. I kept it running when every other facility in this region was shutting down. The board knows that. Deep down, they'll realize they need me. The board fired you. The police are looking for you. It's over." Langston smiled, cold, sharp. "Is it?" He stepped back from the door. Emma heard footsteps retreating down the hallway. For 30 seconds, there was silence. Then the fire alarm in the surgical wing started screaming. Emma smelled it before she saw it. Smoke, acrid and thick, pouring through the ventilation system. Langston had started a fire somewhere in the ductwork, and the smoke was being pulled directly into the surgical wing by the air circulation. The sprinkler system should have activated. Didn't. Either disabled or already damaged by the power failure. Patricia burst out of operating room 2, eyes wide. "We've got smoke in here!" Emma looked at the emergency exit. 4 floors down. 6 patients, some on oxygen, all unstable. Smoke filling the wing fast. They had maybe 5 minutes before carbon monoxide levels became fatal. "We move everyone," Emma said. "Now, down the fire escape." "That's insane! It's the only option." They worked faster than Emma thought possible. Disconnected oxygen lines, switched to portable tanks that would last maybe 10 minutes. Unplugged monitors. Unlocked the emergency exit and felt the blast of cold night air. The fire escape was metal, slick with recent rain. No railings wide enough for a hospital bed. They'd have to carry patients down. Emma took the first one. A woman in her 70s, barely 90 pounds, lifted her in a fireman's carry and started down the stairs, knees shaking with every step. The metal was slippery. Her boots couldn't find purchase. She nearly fell twice. Made it to the 3rd floor landing, 2nd floor. First, Torres was there at the bottom with 6 officers and 2 paramedics. "We've got them," Torres said, taking the patient. "How many more?" 5. "And Langston's in the building." "We know. We've got teams searching." An explosion rocked the building. Not huge, but enough to shake the fire escape. Emma looked up and saw flames erupting from a 4th floor window, the surgical wing, consumed. "Move!" Torres shouted. Emma ran back up, met a Patricia and another nurse carrying a patient between them, helped them down, then went back for the next. And the next. The smoke was getting worse, billowing out of the emergency exit in black clouds. The last patient was the liver transplant, the man Emma had been moving when Langston appeared. He was crashing, oxygen saturation dropping, skin turning blue. "We need to intubate him," Patricia yelled over the alarms. "Not here, get him down." They carried him together, Emma managing the airway while Patricia and a respiratory therapist handled the body weight. The stairs seemed to go on forever. Emma's arms were numb. Her lungs screamed for air that wasn't full of smoke. They reached the ground. Paramedics took over, already setting up for emergency intubation. Emma collapsed against the building, coughing until she tasted blood. Torres appeared. "Everyone out?" Emma nodded, couldn't speak. "Good, because the fire department's here, and they're saying the structural damage is too severe. They're evacuating the entire building." Emma's head snapped up. "How many patients are still inside?" "Over 200. The next hour was a blur of organized chaos. Every available ambulance in the county converged on Redwood Valley Medical Center. Fire crews fought the blaze in the surgical wing while staff evacuated patients floor by floor. The parking lot turned into a temporary triage center, patients on gurneys lined up under portable lights powered by generators. Emma moved between them, assessing, treating, directing resources. Her training kicked in. Years of emergency response drills, disaster preparedness protocols she'd practiced but hoped never to use. A paramedic approached, young and clearly overwhelmed. "We've got a cardiac arrest in Ambulance 6. No defibrillator available. They're all in use." Emma grabbed the nearest crash cart that had made it out of the building, wheeled it to the ambulance, and shocked the patient back to rhythm in under 90 seconds. Someone grabbed her shoulder. She spun, expecting Langston. It was Margaret Whitfield, covered in soot, hair falling out of its bun. The investigators found evidence in Langston's office before the fire reached it. Financial records, emails. He's been embezzling for years, millions. Used the money to pay off board members, silence complaints, cover up incidents. Where is he? No one knows. He disappeared after the fire started. Margaret's expression hardened. But we found something else. A list. Names of staff members he considered threats. Yours was at the top. Emma's blood went cold. Who else? Diane Murphy, Dr. Patel, Linda Reeves. 12 others. Margaret pulled out a printed page, scorched around the edges. Next to each name, there's a note. Yours says primary target. Emma took the page with shaking hands. Beside her name, in Langston's handwriting, eliminate first, maximum impact. He's not just trying to scare you, Margaret said quietly. He's trying to kill you. Torres appeared before Emma could process that. We found his access point. He came in through the maintenance tunnels under the building. There's an entire network down there. Storage rooms, mechanical spaces, old fallout shelters from the Cold War. He could be anywhere. Seal the tunnels. We're trying, but they connect to the city's storm drain system. Miles of passages. We'd need 50 officers to cover all the exits. An ambulance's rear doors slammed nearby. Emma watched it pull away, lights flashing, carrying another critical patient to a hospital 40 miles away because Redwood Valley was burning. He wins either way, Emma said. Torres frowned. What? If he kills me, he gets revenge. If he escapes, he disappears and we never find him. And if we catch him, he becomes a victim, the CEO driven mad by ungrateful staff. He controls the narrative no matter what. So what do you want to do? Emma looked at the burning hospital, at the patients scattered across the parking lot, at the staff working themselves to exhaustion to save lives despite everything falling apart. I want to end this. Torres studied her face. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Before he could respond, Emma was walking away toward the building perimeter where fire crews had set up their command post. She found the fire chief, a barrel-chested man in his 50s, studying blueprints spread across the hood of a truck. The maintenance tunnels, Emma said. How do I access them? The chief looked up. You don't. They're filled with smoke and structurally unstable. I need a way in. Absolutely not. Civilians stay outside the perimeter. Emma pulled out her hospital ID, though it was mostly melted plastic now. I'm not a civilian. I'm a nurse at this hospital, and someone's down there planning to hurt people. Now show me how to access the tunnels, or I'll find it myself. The chief stared at her, clearly weighing whether she was serious. You're insane. So I've been told. The tunnels? He sighed, pointed to the blueprints. There's an access hatch near the loading dock. Down a ladder, through a mechanical room, then into the main tunnel system. But I'm telling you, the smoke, I'll manage. Torres caught up as she headed toward the loading dock. What are you doing? Something stupid. Emma? She spun on him. He's down there. You know it. I know it. And he's not going to stop until someone stops him. Your people are stretched thin. The building's on fire. And we've got over 200 patients who need immediate care. You don't have the resources to hunt him through miles of tunnels. And you do? I have motivation. Torres grabbed her arm. This isn't courage. It's suicide. Maybe. But it's my choice. She pulled free and kept walking. Torres swore under his breath, then followed. At least take this. He handed her a radio and a flashlight. Channel 6. You run into trouble. Call. We'll come. Emma took them. Thank you. Don't thank me. I should be arresting you for obstruction. After this is over, feel free. The access hatch was right where the fire chief said it would be. A rusted metal cover set into the concrete, chain and padlock keeping it sealed. Torres shot the lock off with his service weapon, the sound echoing across the parking lot. Emma pulled the hatch open. A ladder descended into absolute darkness. The smoke wasn't as bad here. The tunnels were below the main ventilation system, but the air was stale, heavy with decades of neglect. She started down. Emma, Torres called from above. You see him? You run. Don't try to be a hero. Too late for that, she thought, but she just nodded and kept descending. The ladder was slick with condensation. 20 feet down, her boots hit concrete. She clicked on the flashlight and swept it across the space. A mechanical room filled with ancient boilers and pipes covered in asbestos warning labels. A doorway on the far side led deeper into the tunnel system. Emma keyed the radio. I'm in. Static crackled back, then Torres's voice. Copy. Proceed with caution. She moved through the doorway into a tunnel that looked like something from another era. Brick walls, arched ceiling, electrical conduits running overhead. Her footsteps echoed. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness but didn't penetrate far enough. Anything could be waiting just outside the light. The tunnel branched. Emma chose left, following what looked like the main passage. The walls were covered in graffiti from decades of maintenance workers. Dates, initials, crude drawings. Some of it was recent. One message, spray-painted in red. Turn back. Emma kept walking. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, some kind of junction point where multiple passages converged. Old furniture was stacked against the walls, a mattress on the floor. Food wrappers. Someone had been living down here. Langston. Emma's radio crackled. Status. The signal was breaking up. Too much concrete and metal between her and the surface. Still searching, she transmitted back. Not sure if it went through. Movement in the darkness ahead. Emma swung the flashlight and caught a glimpse of someone disappearing around a corner. Langston! Her voice echoed back at her, distorted. She ran toward where she'd seen the figure, boots splashing through water pooled on the tunnel floor. Turned the corner and found nothing but another long stretch of brick and shadow. The flashlight flickered. Emma hit it against her palm. The beam steadied, then died completely. Absolute darkness pressed in from all sides. Emma froze, listening. Footsteps somewhere to her left, water dripping, the distant groan of pipes. You shouldn't have come down here, Langston's voice said from everywhere and nowhere. Emma forced herself to breathe slowly. It's over. The police know everything. The evidence is out. Running won't change that. I'm not running. Then what are you doing? Making sure you understand. Understand what? A light flared. A match, illuminating Langston's face 10 feet away. He looked worse than before, eyes sunken, hands trembling. But he was smiling. That some people are worth more than others. That's what you never grasped. I saved this hospital by making hard choices, cutting costs, prioritizing profit over, he stopped himself, over unprofitable cases. You mean people? People who were going to die anyway. Terminal patients, addicts, the homeless. Why waste resources on them when we could use those resources to save productive members of society? Emma's stomach turned. You're talking about eugenics. I'm talking about efficiency. The match burned down. Langston lit another. You thought you were saving people, but all you did was expose a system that worked. Now the hospital's burning, patients are dying in parking lots, and it's your fault. No, it's yours. You started the fire. You sabotaged the power. You created this disaster because you couldn't accept being held accountable. Langston's smile widened. Prove it. The match went out. Emma heard him moving, footsteps retreating deeper into the tunnels. She fumbled with the flashlight, shook it, hit it again. Nothing. Then light blazed from behind her. Torres, climbing through the entrance she'd used, a tactical flashlight mounted on his service weapon. Emma! He's here! She pointed toward where Langston had disappeared. Torres moved past her, weapon drawn. Stay behind me. They followed the tunnel deeper, Torres's light cutting through the darkness. The passage narrowed, forcing them to walk single file. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears. They emerged into another chamber, this one filled with old hospital equipment. Gurneys, wheelchairs, monitors from the 80s. And in the center, Langston stood beside a barrel filled with papers, lighting them on fire. Don't move! Torres shouted. Langston didn't stop, just kept feeding papers into the flames. Financial records, patient files, everything that proves what I've done, burning it all. We already have copies. Do you? Are you sure? Langston's laugh echoed off the walls. I've been preparing for this possibility for years. Backups, encryptions, offshore accounts. You'll never untangle it all. And without documentation, you have nothing. Torres advanced slowly. Victor Langston, you're under arrest for arson, attempted murder, and about a dozen other charges I'll figure out later. Put your hands on your head. Langston pulled something from his pocket. Not a weapon, a remote control. I wouldn't come any closer. Torres froze. What is that? Insurance. Langston pressed a button. Somewhere in the tunnels, Emma heard a click, then a hiss. Gas. Torres's eyes widened. What did you do? The old maintenance tunnels still have the original heating system. Natural gas lines, shut off decades ago, but never disconnected. I've been reopening valves all night. This whole network is filling with gas. One spark and it all goes up. Emma's blood went cold. You'll die too. I don't care. And from the look in his eyes, Emma knew he meant it. Torres raised his weapon. Step away from the fire. Or what? You'll shoot me. The muzzle flash alone could ignite the gas. We'd all die. Langston smiled. Check. Mate. Emma's mind raced. The gas concentration would need time to build to explosive levels. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe less. and they were standing in a confined space with an open flame. "We leave now," Torres said quietly to Emma. "Both of us. Seal the tunnels and let the fire department handle it. He'll escape. I don't care." But Emma did. Because letting Langston walk away meant he'd won. Meant every patient who'd suffered under his administration, every nurse he'd terrorized, every life he'd destroyed, all of it would be meaningless. She stepped forward, hands visible. "Victor, listen to me." "Emma, don't," Torres started. "You wanted me to understand," Emma continued, ignoring Torres. "Fine, I understand. You made choices you thought were necessary. You believed you were saving the hospital, but it's gone. The building's on fire. The board's dissolved. Your career is over. Dying down here doesn't change that." Langston stared at her. "You think I care about the hospital now?" "No. I think you care about being right, about proving you weren't the villain, and you can't do that if you're dead." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or recognition. Then it vanished. "You destroyed me. Now I destroy you." He dropped the remote into the burning barrel. The flames consumed it instantly. Emma heard machinery activating, more gas valves opening, the hiss growing louder. Torres grabbed Emma's arm. "We're leaving! Now!" They ran. Behind them, Langston didn't follow, just stood there beside his burning records, watching them flee. Emma and Torres sprinted through the tunnels, the gas smell getting stronger with every breath. Her lungs burned, her legs threatened to give out. Torres pulled her forward when she stumbled. They reached the ladder, started climbing. Torres went first, then reached down to help Emma up the last few feet. They burst through the hatch into cold night air. Torres slammed it shut and spun the wheel, sealing it. "Get everyone back," he shouted to nearby officers. "Gas leak, possible explosion." Fire crews started evacuating, pulling back from the building's perimeter. Patients were loaded into ambulances faster. The crowd retreated across the parking lot, putting distance between themselves and the hospital. Emma stood there, breathing hard, watching the building. Smoke still poured from the upper floors. The fire was spreading despite the crew's best efforts. "He's still down there," she said. Torres nodded. "I know. We should—" "There's nothing we can do. If we open that hatch, the gas escapes and we risk an explosion on the surface. He made his choice." Emma wanted to argue. Wanted to say they couldn't just let him die, even if he was a monster. But Torres was right. There were 200 patients who needed protection, dozens of staff. Saving one man wasn't worth risking everyone else. She turned away from the hatch, walked back toward the triage area. Patients needed care. That's what mattered now. 30 minutes later, the explosion came. Not from the tunnels, from the hospital's main wing. The blast shook the ground, a rolling boom that rattled windows half a mile away. The building's central section collapsed inward, floors pancaking on top of each other in a cascade of concrete and steel and glass. Dust and debris billowed outward, a wall of gray that swallowed everything. Emma hit the ground, covered her head as chunks of concrete rained down. When she looked up, half the hospital was gone. Fire crews rushed in with rescue equipment, but there was nothing to rescue. The building was rubble. And somewhere beneath it, in tunnels that had probably collapsed entirely, was Victor Langston. Dead. Had to be. Torres appeared through the dust, coughing. "You okay?" Emma nodded, unable to speak. "That wasn't the gas. That was structural failure from the fire. The whole thing just gave up." They stood together, watching what was left of Redwood Valley Medical Center burn. The building Emma had worked in for less than a week. The place where she'd saved lives and ended a nightmare. Now it was gone. Margaret appeared, supporting a patient on a portable oxygen tank. Her face was streaked with tears and ash. "We lost 4 people in the collapse, staff who went back in to get equipment." Emma closed her eyes. 4 deaths, on top of everything else. "But we saved everyone else," Margaret continued, voice cracking. "Over 200 patients evacuated. Not a single patient death during the fire. Because of you. Because you organized the ICU evacuation. Because you kept people moving. Because you didn't give up." Emma opened her eyes. "I didn't do it alone." "No, but you started it." Margaret gripped her shoulder. "Thank you." She walked away before Emma could respond. Torres's radio crackled. He listened, face growing grim. They found a body in the tunnel system, burned beyond recognition, but they're pretty sure it's him. Pretty sure isn't certain. It's as certain as we're going to get. Emma looked at the ruins of the hospital, at the fire crews still fighting flames, at the patients scattered across the parking lot receiving care under the stars. Somewhere in the wreckage, Victor Langston's body was cooling, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that it had been too easy, that a man who'd planned for years wouldn't go down without one final move. The radio in her pocket crackled, the one Torres had given her before she went into the tunnels. She'd forgotten she was still carrying it, static. Then a voice, distorted but unmistakable. "Did you really think I'd die that easily?" Emma's blood turned to ice. Langston's voice continued through the static. "I'm gone. But I left you a gift. Check the morgue, check the basement storage, check everywhere you think is safe. Because I've been planning this for months, and you're about to learn that destroying me comes with a price." The transmission cut out. Emma looked at Torres, saw her own horror reflected in his face. "The morgue," she whispered. "The basement storage. He's planted something." Torres was already running, shouting into his radio for bomb squads, for evacuation teams, for anyone who could help. But Emma stood frozen, listening to the echo of Langston's final words, understanding with terrible clarity that the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. The bomb squad arrived in 8 minutes, which felt like 8 hours. Emma stood in the parking lot, watching specialists in protective gear disappear into what remained of the hospital's lower levels while Torres barked coordinates into 3 different radios at once. The morgue was in the basement. So was storage. So were the tunnels, where they'd just found a body that might not even be Langston. "We're evacuating a 3-block radius," Torres said, not looking at her. "Every patient, every staff member, everyone goes now." Emma looked at the patients scattered across the parking lot, some stable, some barely clinging to life, all of them already traumatized by one disaster. They can't be moved again. Some of them won't survive the transport. They definitely won't survive a secondary explosion. He was right. Emma knew he was right. But watching ambulances load patients who were already critical, watching nurses scramble to disconnect equipment and reconnect it in moving vehicles, watching the organized chaos turn into barely controlled panic, it felt like Langston was still winning, even from whatever hole he'd crawled into. The first bomb squad officer emerged 12 minutes later, pulled off his helmet, face pale. "We found 4 devices: morgue, storage, mechanical room, and one in the old records archive, all on timers, all set to detonate in..." He checked his watch. 17 minutes. Torres swore. "Can you disarm them?" "We're trying, but they're sophisticated, military grade. Whoever built these knew what they were doing." Emma's mind flashed to the EMP that had killed the power, the coordinated attacks, the level of planning. "He had help." Torres looked at her. "What?" "Langston couldn't have done this alone. The explosives, the EMP device, the tunnel network. He had help, professional help." "From who?" Before Emma could answer, Margaret appeared, running despite her age, phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call and grabbed Torres's arm. "The body in the tunnels. Dental records just came back. It's not Langston." The parking lot went silent, except for the crackle of radios and distant sirens. "Then who is it?" Torres demanded. "We don't know. Male, approximately the same height and build as Langston, but that's all we have. Whoever it is, they've been dead less than an hour, killed before the collapse." Emma felt ice spread through her chest. "He killed someone and left the body as a decoy." "Which means he's still alive," Torres finished, "and could be anywhere." A bomb squad officer's voice came through Torres's radio. "We've got a problem. The devices are networked. Disarming one triggers a failsafe in the others. We try to defuse them individually. They all detonate." "How long?" Torres asked. 15 minutes, maybe less." Torres made the call that had to be made. "Everyone out. Now. 3-block perimeter, no exceptions." The evacuation became a stampede. Ambulances pulled out with lights and sirens screaming. Fire crews withdrew. Police formed a moving barrier, herding people away from the hospital. Emma helped load a patient, a woman recovering from brain surgery, barely conscious, into an ambulance already carrying 3 other critical cases. "Where are we taking them?" the paramedic asked, eyes wild. "Anywhere but here." The ambulance pulled away. Emma turned to help the next patient and found Linda beside her, covered in soot and blood that probably wasn't hers. "We're not going to get everyone out in time," Linda said flatly. Emma counted the patients still in the parking lot. 23. Most of them non-ambulatory. The closest safe zone was 4 blocks away. Then we carry them. They organized into teams, 2 people per patient, moving as fast as possible without causing more injury. Emma took a man in his 70s, post-cardiac bypass, still intubated. Linda grabbed one end of the gurney, Emma took the other. They ran. The gurney wheels caught on broken pavement. The man's oxygen tube kinked. Emma had to stop, straighten it, check his saturation while Linda held the gurney steady, and seconds ticked away. They made it 2 blocks before Emma's legs gave out. She stumbled, caught herself on a parked car. Linda grabbed her arm. "Keep moving." "I can't." "You can." Emma forced herself upright, gripped the gurney again, kept running. Her lungs were on fire. Her vision tunneled, but the patient was still breathing, still fighting, and that meant she had to fight too. 3 blocks. The perimeter line. Police officers took the gurney, rushed it further away. Emma collapsed against a building, gasping. Linda sat down beside her. "How many left?" Emma looked back toward the hospital. Through the smoke and chaos, she could see figures still moving in the parking lot. 6 patients, maybe 7, and 8 minutes on the clock. "We have to go back," Emma said. "We'll never make it." "We have to try." They were on their feet, running toward the hospital again, when the bomb squad lieutenant stepped into their path. "Stop. Nobody goes closer." "There are still patients." "I know, but we're out of time. The devices are going to detonate in 6 minutes and we can't stop them. Anyone still in the blast radius?" He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Emma tried to push past him. He held firm. "Let me go." "I can't do that. Those are people. They trusted us to keep them safe. And I'm trying to keep you safe. This area is lost. Accept it." Emma looked at Linda, saw the same desperation in her eyes. They'd fought so hard to save everyone, had risked everything, and now they had to watch people die because there wasn't enough time. Torres appeared, face grim. "Everyone behind the barricades. Final warning." Emma let Linda pull her back, but she couldn't stop watching the hospital. Couldn't stop counting the patients still visible in the parking lot. 7, definitely 7, 4 minutes. A fire crew made a final dash in, grabbed 2 patients, hauled them out. The lieutenant yelled at them over the radio but didn't stop them. They made it back with 90 seconds to spare. 5 patients left. 3 minutes. Emma watched the seconds tick down on Torres's watch, watched the bomb squad pack up their equipment and retreat. Watched the perimeter expand one more time as blast predictions were recalculated. 2 minutes. Someone was screaming in the distance, a family member who'd spotted a patient still in the danger zone. Officers held them back. The screaming got louder. 1 minute. Emma closed her eyes. Couldn't watch. Couldn't bear to witness the final failure. 30 seconds. The world held its breath. 15 seconds. Emma heard Linda praying beside her, words Emma didn't know or believe in but understood the need for anyway. 5 seconds. Nothing. 10 seconds past the deadline. Still nothing. Torres was on the radio immediately. "Status?" The bomb squad lieutenant responded after a pause that lasted forever. "Devices didn't detonate. Repeat. Devices didn't detonate. They're still active, but the timer stopped at 0. "What does that mean?" "It means they're waiting for a manual trigger. Someone has to activate them remotely." Emma's eyes snapped open. "He's watching. Somewhere nearby, he's watching and waiting." Torres was already moving, shouting orders. "Scan all frequencies, find that signal, and get those patients out now." The parking lot erupted into motion again. Fire crews and paramedics rushed in, grabbed the remaining patients, evacuated them in under 3 minutes. Emma watched them go, relief and rage warring in her chest. Langston was out there, watching them scramble, enjoying the fear, and he was waiting for the perfect moment to push the button. The bomb squad worked for 2 hours to disarm the devices. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking over Redwood Valley, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of orange and red that looked like the world was still burning. Emma sat on the curb 3 blocks from the hospital, drinking water someone had handed her, watching emergency crews pick through rubble. Her phone, a replacement Torres had given her, buzzed with messages. News outlets requesting interviews. The state medical board wanting statements. The mayor's office asking for a meeting. She ignored all of them. Margaret found her as the sun fully cleared the horizon. The board chair looked like she'd aged 20 years overnight, but her spine was still straight, her eyes still sharp. They found Langston's car, Margaret said, abandoned at the county line, wiped clean. No prints, no DNA, nothing. He's gone. For now. But Torres has every law enforcement agency in 3 states looking for him. He won't get far. Emma wasn't so sure. A man who could plan all this, who could stay hidden in maintenance tunnels for days, who had resources to acquire military-grade equipment, that man could disappear if he wanted to. The board met an hour ago, Margaret continued. Emergency session. We're disbanding Redwood Valley Medical Center effective immediately. The building's too damaged to repair, the cost too high, and frankly, her voice cracked. We failed. We let Langston operate unchecked for years. We ignored warnings. We prioritized budget over safety. This is on us. What happens to the patients, the staff? Patients are being transferred to facilities across the region. Staff will receive severance and assistance finding new positions. It's the best we can do. Margaret sat down on the curb beside Emma. I'm sorry. I know you fought to save this place. I fought to save people. The building doesn't matter. Margaret nodded slowly. The investigators finished their review of Langston's files. What they found... She pulled out a folder, handed it to Emma. You should see this. Emma opened it. Inside were financial records, emails, memos, evidence of embezzlement going back 15 years. But also something else, a list of names, board members, city officials, state legislators. Beside each name, a dollar amount. He was bribing them, Emma said, for years. Millions of dollars in kickbacks, campaign contributions, personal loans that were never repaid. He built a network of people who owed him, who would look the other way when complaints surfaced. Margaret's hand shook as she pointed to one name. That's the state health commissioner, and that's a federal senator. Langston's corruption goes deeper than anyone imagined. Emma stared at the list, understanding dawning. This isn't just about one hospital. No, it's about a systemic failure at every level, and you exposed it. Margaret met her eyes. People are going to want you to testify. Federal investigators, congressional committees, possibly criminal trials. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. It's going to get worse. Powerful people are going to be very angry that their names are public. Some of them will fight back. You need to be prepared. Emma closed the folder. I've been prepared since the moment I stopped that slap. Margaret smiled, a tired, sad expression. I believe you. She stood, joints creaking. For what it's worth, you did the right thing, even if it cost everything. She walked away, leaving Emma alone with the folder and the weight of what came next. The media descended by noon. News vans lined every street around the ruined hospital. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who walked by. Emma watched from a coffee shop across the street, hood pulled up, trying to stay invisible. It didn't work. A reporter spotted her through the window, and suddenly 10 cameras were pointed at her face. Emma put down her coffee and walked out the back exit, but they followed. Microphones thrust forward, lights blinding. Emma Carter, how does it feel to be called a hero? Did you know Victor Langston was planning to destroy the hospital? Is it true you single-handedly evacuated the ICU? Sources say you were fired before the explosion. Is that accurate? Emma kept walking, not answering. Torres appeared from a patrol car, pushed through the crowd, and extracted her. You need to make a statement, he said once they were in the car. Otherwise, they'll make one up for you. I don't want to be a story. Too late. You already are. He drove her to the police station, which was also surrounded by media. They went in through the back. Inside, chaos reigned. Phones ringing constantly, officers running between rooms, boxes of evidence stacked everywhere. Torres led her to a conference room where federal agents were waiting. FBI badges, serious faces, recording equipment set up on the table. Miss Carter, I'm Special Agent Rachel Brennan. We need your full cooperation regarding Victor Langston and the corruption network he established. Emma sat down. I'll tell you everything I know. The interview lasted 4 hours. Emma recounted every interaction with Langston, every policy violation she'd witnessed, every incident report that had disappeared. The agents recorded it all, asked follow-up questions that dug deeper, pressed for details Emma hadn't thought were important. Did Langston ever mention associates? People helping him? Not directly, but the equipment he used, the EMP, the explosives, that wasn't amateur work. We're investigating his financial records. Multiple wire transfers to offshore accounts, shell companies, encrypted communications. He was working with someone. Agent Brennan slid a photo across the table. Do you recognize this man? Emma studied the image. White male, late 40s, military bearing. She'd never seen him before. No. Who is he? Former Special Forces. Dishonorable discharge 5 years ago for weapons trafficking. We think he supplied Langston with the explosives and technical expertise. Where is he now? Missing, just like Langston. Emma's stomach dropped. They're together. Possibly, which means Langston has access to someone with advanced combat training and no conscience. Brennan leaned forward. We need you in protective custody. If Langston is working with a professional, you're in danger. I'm not hiding. This isn't a request. Until we locate Langston and his associate, you're a target. We can keep you safe, but you have to cooperate. Emma thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. Miss Carter, no. I'm not spending the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. If Langston wants to come after me, let him, but I'm not running. Brennan exchanged looks with her partner. We can't force you, but we strongly advise. I heard your advice. I'm declining it. The interview ended shortly after. Torres drove Emma to a hotel on the edge of town. Not the motel she'd been staying in, somewhere new. He walked her to the room, checked the locks, the windows. You're being stupid, he said. Probably. Langston tried to kill you 3 times yesterday. 4th time might succeed. Then catch him before there's a 4th time. Torres sighed. We're trying, but this guy is smart. He's had months to plan his escape. Could be in Mexico by now. Could be in Canada. Could be hiding in someone's basement 2 blocks from here. He's not in Mexico. How do you know? Because he's not finished. The explosives that didn't go off, that wasn't mercy. That was control. He wanted us to know he could kill everyone, but chose not to. He's making a point. What point? That he's still in charge. That even with everything exposed, even with the FBI hunting him, he still has power. Emma sat on the bed, exhausted. He won't leave until he proves that. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Get some sleep. I'll have a patrol car outside all night. He left. Emma locked the door behind him, checked the windows again, and sat in the chair facing the door with the lights off. She didn't sleep. Just waited, listening for footsteps that never came. Morning arrived gray and cold. Emma showered, changed into clothes Torres had brought her, jeans, a jacket, running shoes. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Press conference at City Hall, 10 a.m. You should be there. No signature. Emma stared at the message, trying to decide if it was a threat or information. She went anyway. City Hall was packed. News crews, hospital staff, patients' families, city officials. Emma slipped in the back, staying out of sight. The mayor stood at a podium, flanked by Margaret and several board members. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today we address the tragedy at Redwood Valley Medical Center and announce steps being taken to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. The mayor droned on about investigations, reforms, accountability. Emma half listened, scanning the crowd for Langston's face. He wasn't stupid enough to show up here. But someone else caught her attention. A man standing near the side exit, late 40s, military bearing, the same man from the photo Agent Brennan had shown her. Emma's pulse spiked. She pulled out her phone, texted Torres. He's here, City Hall, side exit. The man's eyes swept the crowd and landed directly on Emma. He smiled, then disappeared through the exit. Emma didn't think. She ran, pushing through the crowd, ignoring shouts of protest. Burst through the side door into an alley. The man was 50 feet ahead, walking calmly. Stop! He didn't, just kept walking. Emma chased him. The alley opened onto a street. She rounded the corner and found him waiting, leaning against a wall like he had all the time in the world. Emma Carter, he said, voice calm, almost friendly. You're smaller than I expected. Where's Langston? Close, always close. He pushed off the wall. He wanted me to give you a message. I don't want messages. I want him in custody. The man laughed. He knew you'd say that, told me you were stubborn, said it was your best and worst quality. He pulled something from his pocket, a flash drive, tossed it to Emma. Watch this. Then you'll understand. Emma caught the drive. Understand what? That you didn't win. You just changed the game. Sirens erupted in the distance, Torres and half the police force responding to her text. The man heard them too. Better run. They'll want to ask me questions I won't answer. He started walking away. I will find you, Emma called after him. He looked back over his shoulder. I'm counting on it. Then he turned a corner and vanished. Torres arrived 30 seconds later with 6 officers. Where is he? Emma pointed. They took off running. She knew they wouldn't find him. A man with special forces training who didn't want to be found? He was already miles away. Back at the station, Emma handed the flash drive to Agent Brennan. Run every test you have. I don't trust anything from these people. The tech scanned it for malware, viruses, tracking software, found nothing, just a video file. Brennan pulled it up on a laptop. Hit play. Victor Langston's face filled the screen. He looked tired but composed, sitting in what appeared to be a cheap motel room. Hello, Emma. If you're watching this, it means my associate delivered it successfully. Good. We need to talk. His voice was calm, reasonable, like they were colleagues discussing a case. You think you destroyed me. You think exposing my crimes means justice. But you're wrong. I'm not the disease, I'm a symptom. The system I built at Redwood Valley exists at 100 hospitals across this country. Administrators making the same choices I made, prioritizing profit over people, covering up mistakes, silencing whistleblowers. He leaned forward, staring directly into the camera. I kept records on all of them, names, dates, incidents. Everything I did, they did too. And now you've made me infamous, Emma. Now every hospital administrator who took shortcuts is terrified I'll expose them next. Langston smiled. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to release everything. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence showing that Redwood Valley wasn't unique. It was normal. And when the public sees how deep this goes, the entire healthcare system is going to burn. Emma felt ice spread through her veins. You wanted justice? Congratulations. You're about to get it. Hundreds of administrators fired, thousands of malpractice suits, hospitals closing across the country because they can't survive the scrutiny, patient care collapsing because there aren't enough facilities to handle the load. He paused, letting that sink in. Or, you can stop it. Tell the FBI to call off the manhunt. Tell the media I was a lone bad actor. Let me disappear quietly. In exchange, I'll bury the evidence. All those other administrators keep their jobs, their hospitals stay open, and the system continues functioning. Another pause. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I release everything. And the blood of every patient who dies because of system collapse? That's on you. The video ended. The conference room was silent. Brennan spoke first. He's bluffing. There's no way he has evidence on hundreds of hospitals. You sure about that? Emma asked quietly. Brennan wasn't. Nobody was. Torres paced. Even if he does, we can't negotiate with him. Set that precedent, and every criminal will try the same thing. He's right, though, Emma said, about what happens if the evidence goes public. The healthcare system is already fragile. This could break it completely. Margaret, who'd arrived during the video, shook her head. So we let him go? Let him walk away with millions in stolen funds and no consequences? Or we let him blow up the entire system, Emma said. Those are the options. Brennan stood. We need to escalate this. Get Justice Department involved, hospital associations, HHS. This is bigger than one case. They filed out, leaving Emma alone in the conference room with the frozen image of Langston's face on the screen. She stared at him, at his calculated expression, his false reasonableness. He'd backed them into a corner. No matter what they chose, people would suffer. But Emma had learned something over the past week. Sometimes the right choice wasn't the easy one. She pulled out her phone and made a call. This is Emma Carter. I need to speak to the media. All of them, right now. 40 minutes later, she stood in front of 20 cameras, twice as many microphones, and a crowd that had gathered when word spread that she was making a statement. Emma didn't prepare remarks, didn't rehearse, just spoke. My name is Emma Carter. 6 days ago, I started working at Redwood Valley Medical Center. Yesterday, that hospital was destroyed. Victor Langston, the CEO, is responsible. But he's also right about something. He wasn't unique. The problems at Redwood Valley exist across this country. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Langston is trying to blackmail us. He has evidence of corruption at other hospitals, and he's threatening to release it unless we let him escape. He thinks that gives him power, that will choose stability over justice. Emma paused, meeting the camera lenses directly. He's wrong. Release the evidence. All of it. Every hospital, every administrator, every covered-up incident. Let the public see exactly how broken the system is. Because that's the only way we fix it. The crowd erupted in questions. Emma ignored them, kept talking. Will it be painful? Yes. Will hospitals close? Probably. Will the system struggle? Absolutely. But the alternative is living with corruption and letting people die to protect institutions that failed them. I'm not doing that. Not anymore. She stepped back from the microphones. Emma Carter, are you saying you support releasing the evidence? Someone shouted. I'm saying I'm tired of protecting people who don't deserve it. Langston wanted to use fear as a weapon. I'm taking that weapon away. She walked off, leaving chaos behind. Torres caught up to her in the parking lot. You just painted a target on your back. Every corrupt administrator in the country is going to come after you. Let them try. Emma, I'm done being scared, done making compromises. If Langston releases the evidence, fine. If he doesn't, fine. Either way, people are going to start asking the right questions. Torres looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he just nodded. You need protection. I need a cup of coffee and about 12 hours of sleep. I'm serious. So am I. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer. Then she did. You're making a mistake, Langston's voice said. No distortion this time. Clear as if he were standing beside her. Emma's hand tightened on the phone. Where are you? Doesn't matter. What matters is you just declared war on the entire healthcare industry. Do you have any idea how many powerful people you just threatened? I'm counting on it. Langston was quiet for a moment. You really think you can take on the whole system? I think someone has to. Martyr complex. How predictable. His voice hardened. Fine. You want war? I'll give you war. 48 hours, Emma. Then everyone sees exactly what you started. The line went dead. Emma stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, Torres watching her with concern. What did he say? Torres asked. That I have 48 hours before he releases everything. And then? Emma looked at the ruined hospital in the distance, at the smoke still rising, at the city that would never be the same. Then we find out if I'm brave or just stupid. The 48 hours didn't feel like counting down. They felt like holding your breath underwater, waiting to see if your lungs would give out first or if you'd break the surface. Emma spent the first 12 in a conference room with federal prosecutors, laying out everything she knew about Langston's network. Names, transactions, incidents. They recorded every word, cross-referenced it with evidence seized from his office, and built a case that grew larger with each passing hour. This goes beyond healthcare, one prosecutor said, flipping through financial records. We're looking at racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. If even half of what he claims is true, this could bring down state officials, federal appointees. Then let it, Emma said. The prosecutor looked up, startled. You understand what that means? The political fallout alone. I understand that people died because administrators cared more about money than lives. I understand that Langston isn't unique. He's just the one who got caught. So yeah, let it all burn. We'll rebuild from the ashes. By hour 24, Langston's threat had leaked to the media. Cable news ran wall-to-wall coverage, speculation spiraling into panic. Hospital stocks plummeted. Healthcare administrators across the country issued frantic denials. The American Hospital Association held an emergency press conference demanding Langston be arrested immediately. Emma watched it from her hotel room, volume low, wondering how many of the people denying wrongdoing were exactly as guilty as Langston claimed. Her phone rang. Margaret. Turn on Channel 7. Emma switched channels and found a live feed from Capitol Hill. A congressional hearing had been called emergency session. Hospital administrators were being subpoenaed to testify under oath about their facilities' practices. It's already starting, Margaret said. Langston doesn't even need to release the evidence. Your statement yesterday opened the floodgates. People are coming forward on their own. Emma watched a hospital CEO squirm under questioning, dodging questions about buried incident reports and falsified safety records. How bad is it? 12 hospitals under investigation as of an hour ago. The number's climbing. Justice Department is setting up a task force. Margaret paused. You did this. You made them look. Langston did this. I just refused to look away. That's the same thing. After Margaret hung up, Emma sat in silence, watching the hearing, watching administrators who'd built careers on silence and intimidation get torn apart by representatives who smelled blood in the water. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Enjoying the show? You broke the dam. Now watch everything drown. Langston. Still out there. Still watching. Emma texted back. Where are you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Closer than you think. Emma's blood went cold. She called Torres immediately. He just texted me. Says he's close. We're tracking it. Stay where you are. Don't leave the room. Emma was already grabbing her jacket. He wants me to stay put. That means I shouldn't. Emma? She hung up, left the hotel through a side exit Torres's people weren't watching. If Langston was close, if he was watching, she wasn't going to wait for him to make the first move. The city felt different in the aftermath of the explosion. Quieter. Like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what broke next. Emma walked through streets she barely knew, no destination in mind, just moving because staying still felt like surrender. She ended up at a park 3 blocks from the ruined hospital. Could still see smoke rising in the distance, still smell it on the wind. A playground sat empty, swings moving in the breeze. You're predictable. Emma spun. Langston stood 20 feet away, hands in the pockets of a worn jacket that looked nothing like his usual expensive suits. He'd changed, thinner, unshaven, eyes sunken, but still standing, still here. Where's your friend? Emma asked, scanning for the Special Forces guy. Gone. Turned out he had standards I didn't meet. Langston smiled without humor. Hard to find good help when everyone thinks you're a monster. You are a monster. Maybe, or maybe I'm just someone who saw reality clearly and you couldn't handle it. He took a step closer. Emma held her ground. You know what's going to happen now? The evidence I have, it's going to destroy the healthcare system. Not improve it, destroy it. Hospitals will close. Administrators will flee. The regulatory oversight will be so extreme that facilities won't be able to operate, and patients will die. Thousands of them. Because you couldn't accept that sometimes the system needs to be broken to function. That's not my fault. That's yours. And theirs. Every administrator who made the same choices you did. But you're the one who lit the match. Good. Langston studied her. You really believe that? You'd rather watch it all collapse than let imperfect people keep trying. I'd rather rebuild something honest than preserve something rotten. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You're young. You still think honesty matters more than survival. He pulled his hand from his pocket. Emma tensed, expecting a weapon. It was a phone. I have the release scheduled for 1 hour from now. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence. It'll hit media outlets, congressional offices, and federal investigators simultaneously. No way to stop it. No way to contain it. He held up the phone. Unless I cancel the timer. Why would you do that? Because I'm tired, Emma. Tired of running. Tired of fighting. Tired of being the villain in a story where everyone else gets to pretend they're innocent. His voice cracked. I built that hospital from bankruptcy. Saved hundreds of jobs. Kept it running when every financial advisor said to close it. And yes, I made compromises. I buried complaints. I chose profit over some patients, but I also chose survival over collapse. And now you've taken that away. Emma saw it then. Not redemption, not excuses, but exhaustion. A man who'd convinced himself his evil was necessary and couldn't face the fact that it wasn't. Turn yourself in, Emma said. Face trial. Tell the truth about everything. Maybe some of what you're saying is real. Maybe the system is broken enough that your choices made sense to you. But you don't get to decide that alone. You don't get to play God with people's lives. And you do? No, none of us do. That's the point. Langston was quiet for a long moment. The swings creaked in the wind. Somewhere distant, sirens wailed. If I turn myself in, I spend the rest of my life in prison. Everything I built, everything I worked for, erased. You erased it yourself when you started covering up deaths. Those deaths were inevitable. No, they weren't. You just decided they were acceptable. Emma took a step closer. You want to know the difference between us? I don't think any death is acceptable. I think every patient deserves a chance. And when the system fails them, we fix the system. We don't sacrifice the patient. Langston's hand tightened on the phone. For a moment, Emma thought he might smash it, might let the timer run out and release everything just to prove he could. Instead, he sat down on a park bench, suddenly looking 20 years older. I can't go to prison. I won't survive it. Then you should have made different choices. It's easy to say that when you've never had to make them. Emma sat down beside him, close enough to grab the phone if she had to. I made them yesterday, when I could have stayed quiet and kept my job. When I could have let that man with the knife get arrested instead of treated. When I could have followed your protocols and let people die because it was easier than fighting. I made those choices, and I'd make them again. Langston looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time. You're going to burn out. Within 5 years, you'll be as cynical as me. You'll see enough death, enough failure, enough impossible situations, and you'll start making the same calculations I did. Maybe. Or maybe I'll remember that every calculation involves a real person, and I'll fight like hell to make sure they're not just numbers. Torres appeared at the edge of the park, 6 officers fanning out behind him, weapons drawn. Victor Langston, don't move! Langston sighed, a sound like surrender. He held up the phone. I need to cancel something first. Put the phone down! If I don't cancel this, you're all going to regret it. Emma touched his arm. Do it. Cancel it. Then tell them everything, not as revenge, as truth. Langston stared at the phone's screen. His finger hovered over the cancel button. Then he pressed it. The timer disappeared. It's done, he said quietly. The evidence is locked. Only I know the access codes. Torres moved in fast, officers surrounding them. Langston stood slowly, hands raised. I'll give you the codes, he said to Torres. All of them. Every file, every name, everything. But I want a deal. Cooperation in exchange for reduced sentencing. Torres looked at Emma. She nodded once. We'll talk to the prosecutors, Torres said. No promises. They cuffed Langston, read him his rights. As they led him toward the patrol cars, he looked back at Emma. You won. I hope it was worth it. Emma didn't answer, just watched them drive away, taking the monster with them. The next 72 hours were a blur. Langston's evidence was recovered, cross-referenced, verified. Federal investigators descended on hospitals across the country. Congressional hearings expanded. The media coverage was relentless, and Emma was at the center of it all. She testified before Congress, laying out what she'd witnessed at Redwood Valley. She gave interviews, explaining why she'd refused to stay silent. She met with patient advocacy groups, whistleblower protection organizations, healthcare reform committees. Through it all, she kept expecting to feel vindicated, to feel like she'd won. Instead, she just felt tired. 2 weeks after Langston's arrest, Emma sat in a diner on the edge of Redwood Valley, drinking bad coffee and watching the sun rise. The hospital ruins had been fenced off, demolition scheduled for next month. A memorial was being planned for the staff who died in the collapse. Margaret slid into the booth across from her. You're hard to find. That's the point. The media is looking for you. So are about 15 different organizations wanting you to speak, to lead initiatives, to be the face of healthcare reform. I'm not interested. I figured. Margaret ordered coffee from the waitress, waited until they were alone again. What are you interested in? Emma thought about it. Nursing. Just nursing. No politics, no crusades, just taking care of people who need it. That's going to be hard after everything that's happened. You're famous now. People know your name. Then I'll go somewhere they don't? Margaret smiled. Actually, I might have an option. There's a clinic 2 hours north of here, free medical care for uninsured patients, mostly staffed by volunteers. They're expanding, need experienced nurses. It's not glamorous, the pay is terrible, but the work matters. Emma looked up. You already talked to them, didn't you? I may have mentioned you were looking for a change. They'd be thrilled to have you. No media, no spotlight, just medicine. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt something like hope. When can I start? Whenever you want. They sat in silence for a moment, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. What's going to happen to all the patients from Redwood Valley? Emma asked. Most have been placed in other facilities, some are still waiting for transfers. It's chaos, but we're managing. Margaret paused. Marcus, the man you saved, he's been asking about you. How is he? Recovering well? He's been talking to reporters, telling them how you fought for him when everyone else gave up. Became something of a spokesperson for patient rights. Emma smiled despite herself. Good. He deserves to be heard. So do you. I'm done talking. I just want to work. Margaret studied her. You know this isn't over, right? Langston's trial will take years. There will be appeals, more testimony, endless media cycles. You changed the system, Emma. That doesn't happen quietly. I didn't change anything. I just stopped lying about how broken it was. Same thing. They finished their coffee. Margaret paid the bill, slid a business card across the table. That's the clinic. Director's name is Sarah Mendez. She's expecting your call. Emma pocketed the card. Thank you for everything. Thank you for having the courage the rest of us lacked. Margaret left. Emma sat alone, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Her phone buzzed. Text from Linda. Saw you on the news. You looked exhausted. Get some sleep, then call me. Got something to run by you. Another text from Patel. Congressional hearing was brutal but necessary. Thank you for starting this. A third from Diane. 19 years I waited for someone to stand up. You did it in less than a week. Don't you dare disappear on us. Emma scrolled through the messages, feeling the weight of expectation, the pressure to be more than she was. Then she turned off her phone. She left the diner, walked to her car, and drove north. Away from Redwood Valley, away from the ruins and the memories and the cameras, toward something quieter, something that felt like purpose instead of performance. The clinic was in a small town Emma had never heard of, housed in a converted elementary school. The parking lot was half empty. The building needed paint, but the sign out front read, Riverside Free Clinic, all welcome. Emma walked inside. The waiting room was full. Families, elderly patients, people who looked like they'd been turned away from everywhere else. A receptionist looked up, harried. Can I help you? I'm Emma Carter, here to see Sarah Mendez. The receptionist's eyes widened. Oh, you're the nurse from... I'm just a nurse, Emma interrupted gently. Is Sarah available? Sarah turned out to be a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and hands that looked like they'd seen decades of hard work. She welcomed Emma into an office that was really just a converted classroom, whiteboards still on the walls. Margaret told me about you, Sarah said. About what you did, what you risked. I just did my job. That's exactly why I want you here. Too many people forget the job is about patients, not paperwork. Sarah gestured to the window, overlooking the waiting room. We see about 200 patients a week. Most can't afford insurance. Some are homeless. Some are immigrants afraid to go to hospitals. All of them need care. We give it to them. No questions, no judgment, no billing department deciding who deserves treatment. Emma looked at the waiting room, at the tired faces and anxious parents and elderly patients who'd probably been turned away from a dozen other places. When can I start? How about now? Emma started laughing, couldn't help it. After everything, the explosions, the manhunt, the congressional testimony, after all of it, she was right back where she wanted to be, taking care of people who needed it. Let me grab my stethoscope. She spent the rest of the day seeing patients, a diabetic man whose medication had run out, a child with an ear infection whose parents couldn't afford the emergency room, an elderly woman with heart failure who'd been rationing her prescriptions. Emma treated them all, listened to their stories, answered their questions, gave them the care they deserved. It felt like coming home. That evening, Sarah found her in the supply room, restocking bandages. "You're good at this," Sarah said. "Not just the medicine, the listening. It's the important part. Most people don't realize that." Sarah leaned against the doorframe. "You know you're going to get recognized here eventually. Someone's going to see you, connect the dots. The media will show up. Let them. I'll keep working. Even when it gets hard, especially then," Sarah smiled. "I think you're going to fit in just fine." Over the next weeks, Emma settled into a rhythm. Early shifts at the clinic, late nights studying medical journals, occasional calls from prosecutors needing clarification on testimony. The media attention faded slowly, replaced by new scandals and crises. Langston's trial date was set for 6 months out. Emma would have to testify, would have to relive everything. But that was future Emma's problem. Present Emma had patients to see. One afternoon, Marcus showed up at the clinic. Emma was checking a patient's blood pressure when she saw him in the waiting room, looking healthier than she'd ever seen him. "Hey," he said when she finished. "Heard you were working here. Wanted to say thanks. Again." "You already thanked me." "Yeah, well, you saved my life. Figure I owe you about 1,000 more." Emma smiled. "How are you feeling?" "Good. Great, actually. Got into a program that helps with job placement, housing. Starting work next week at a warehouse. Nothing fancy, but it's honest." He paused. "I've been talking to other people. Patients who got turned away from hospitals, who got told they were faking. There are hundreds of us, maybe thousands. We're organizing." "Organizing what?" "A group. Patients speaking up about their experiences, pushing for reforms. Making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others." His eyes were bright with purpose. "You started something. We're going to finish it." Emma felt something tighten in her chest. Not fear, not pressure, just recognition. That change didn't come from one person standing up. It came from everyone who stood up after. "That's good," she said. "That's really good. You should speak at our first meeting. Tell people what you saw." "I'm not a speaker. I'm a nurse." "You're both, whether you like it or not." He left before she could argue. Emma stood in the hallway, watching him go, understanding that he was right, that she'd changed the rules by refusing to play by them. And now other people were doing the same. 6 months later, Emma sat in a federal courtroom, watching Victor Langston face trial. The prosecutors laid out evidence in meticulous detail: embezzlement, fraud, negligence, conspiracy. The list went on for 3 days. Langston's defense tried to paint him as a scapegoat, a man who'd made difficult choices in an impossible system. They called character witnesses who spoke about his dedication, his long hours, his commitment to keeping the hospital running. Then Emma took the stand. The prosecutor asked her to describe her first week at Redwood Valley. Emma did, in quiet, measured tones. Described the fear she'd seen in nurses' eyes. The patients turned away. The incident reports that disappeared. The slap that never landed. "And when you stopped Mr. Langston from striking you, what went through your mind?" Emma looked directly at Langston. He met her eyes, expression unreadable. That someone had to say enough. That fear only works if everyone agrees to be afraid. And I was done being afraid. The defense cross-examined her, tried to poke holes in her timeline, her memory, her motives. Emma answered every question calmly, factually, without emotion. When she stepped down, she felt lighter. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, found Langston guilty on 43 counts. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in federal prison. Emma wasn't in the courtroom when the sentence was read. She was at the clinic treating a patient with pneumonia who couldn't afford hospitalization. She heard about the verdict from a news alert on her phone. 20 years. Emma put her phone away and went back to work. A year after the explosion, Redwood Valley held a memorial service for the staff members who died in the collapse. Emma attended, standing in the back while families spoke about their loved ones. Nurses who'd stayed behind to help patients. Firefighters who'd gone in knowing the building was unstable. Heroes, everyone called them. Emma thought about that word. About how it got applied to people who'd just done their jobs. About how the real heroism was in the small choices. Staying when you could leave. Speaking when you could stay silent. Fighting, when you could surrender. After the service, people wanted to talk to her, to shake her hand, to thank her, to tell her she was an inspiration. Emma deflected as much as she could, but Linda cornered her by the parking lot. "You can't keep hiding," Linda said. "People need to see that standing up works, that it matters. It cost 4 lives. The hospital's gone. Langston's in prison, but hundreds of other administrators are still out there making the same choices. I didn't fix anything." "You fixed the lie that it was acceptable. That's not nothing." Emma looked at the memorial, flowers and photos and grief. "It doesn't feel like enough." "It never does. But you keep going anyway." Linda squeezed her shoulder. "That's the real lesson, not the dramatic moment. The part where you get up the next day and keep fighting." Linda was right. Emma knew she was right, so she kept working, kept seeing patients, kept testifying when called, kept saying no to media requests and yes to patient advocacy groups. Slowly, things changed. Not everywhere, not all at once, but piece by piece. New regulations passed requiring independent oversight of hospital safety reports. Whistleblower protections strengthened. Funding allocated for free clinics and community health centers. And across the country, nurses and doctors and patients started speaking up when they saw something wrong, started asking questions, started refusing to accept that broken systems were inevitable. 2 years after Langston's conviction, Emma was offered a position as director of nursing at a newly rebuilt medical center on the site where Redwood Valley had stood. State-of-the-art facilities, transparent governance, patient advocacy built into the structure. She turned it down. "Why?" Margaret asked when Emma called to decline. "This is what you fought for, a chance to build something better." "I know, but I'm not a builder. I'm a nurse, and there are people at the clinic who need me more than a fancy new hospital does." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "You're sure?" "Completely." "Then I'm proud of you, for knowing who you are and not letting anyone tell you different." Emma hung up and walked into the clinic's waiting room. 30 patients waiting. A staffing shortage because 2 nurses had called in sick. Equipment that barely worked. A leaking roof they couldn't afford to fix. And every single patient would get the care they deserved. Emma grabbed the first chart and got to work. Years passed. The media moved on to new stories. Langston became a cautionary tale told in medical schools and ethics classes. The healthcare reforms sparked by the scandal continued, evolved, faced pushback and resistance and slow, grinding progress. Emma stayed at the clinic, became assistant director, then director when Sarah retired, hired nurses who'd been fired from other hospitals for speaking up, created protocols that put patients first, always. Sometimes former Redwood Valley staff visited. Patel, now running an ER at a hospital 3 states away, implementing safety measures he'd learned from watching everything burn. Diane, teaching nursing students about advocacy and courage. Linda, retired but volunteering at patient support groups. They'd gather at the diner where Emma had met Margaret years ago, drink bad coffee, and talk about the patients they'd saved and the ones they hadn't. About the system that was still broken, but less broken than before. About the work that never ended but mattered anyway. "You ever regret it?" Diane asked one evening. "Standing up to Langston? Everything that happened after?" Emma thought about it. About the explosion, the fear, the exhaustion. About the patients who'd died and the ones she'd saved. About the career she could have had and the one she chose instead. "No," she said, "not for a second." Even knowing how hard it would be? Especially knowing that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Emma's phone buzzed. A patient needed refills on medication. She texted back that she'd handle it first thing in the morning, then put her phone away. The work would always be there. The patients would always need care. The system would always have cracks where people fell through. But Emma Carter would be there too, catching them, fighting for them, refusing to accept that anyone was disposable. She'd learned something in that week at Redwood Valley. In the moment, she'd stopped a slap and started a revolution. That power wasn't about titles or authority or control. It was about refusing to be silent when silence meant complicity. It was about standing up when everyone else stayed seated. It was about believing that every person mattered, even when the system said they didn't. Emma had been called a hero, a whistleblower, a troublemaker, an inspiration. But she was none of those things, and all of them at once. She was just a nurse who'd decided enough was enough. and that had made all the difference. The sun set completely, leaving them in the comfortable darkness of a diner that had seen 1,000 conversations and would see 1,000 more. Emma finished her coffee, said goodbye to her friends, and walked out into the night. Tomorrow, there would be patients waiting, problems to solve, battles to fight. But tonight, she could rest knowing she'd done what mattered. She'd chosen people over power, truth over comfort, justice over silence. And she'd do it again every single time for as long as she could stand, because that's what nurses did. They showed up, they cared, they fought, and they never, ever gave up. Emma drove home through streets that felt familiar now, past the memorial where Redwood Valley had stood, toward a future she'd helped build by refusing to accept the past. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But she was ready. She'd always been ready. She just hadn't known it until someone tried to make her afraid, and she'd discovered that fear only worked if you let it. Emma Carter had stopped letting it, and the world was better for it.